Okay, so today we're going deep into Sri Vidya, which, you know, for anyone listening who's into spirituality, I think you're going to find this really fascinating because it's all about how you can have worldly success, like, you know, the good life, but also like ultimate freedom, like moksha.
Bhoga and Moksha.
Yeah, exactly right.
In the palm of your hand.
In the palm of your hand, that's right.
Yeah.
So if you like getting to the heart of things, like quickly but thoroughly,
absolutely,
you're in the right place.
This is for you.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's great is we have, you know, this amazing source material to work with.
We do.
It's a Speaking Tree YouTube video transcript.
Okay.
And the speaker is Smitha Venkatesh. And she really goes into Sri Vidya in a lot of detail.
She does, yeah. She talks about the tradition and the practices, her own experiences.
Yeah, and like, you know, I think what we're going to do today is like really try to pull out the most important things, you know, for our listeners so that they can get a good grasp on like, you know, what's this all about?
I think that's a great approach. Let's break down these complex teachings and make them accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with this idea of like the dual nature of Sri Vidya.
Okay.
Like you said, you know, Bhag and Moksha.
Yeah.
All in one go.
Yeah. So the thing about Sri Vidya that makes it so interesting is that it embraces both sides of this coin.
Okay.
You know, so Moksha, as Smitha Venkatesh explains it, it's about ultimate freedom, like breaking free from the cycle of, you know.
Yeah, like birth and death and all that.
Birth and death, exactly. Reincarnation, that whole cycle. Yeah, and that's like the ultimate goal in a lot of spiritual traditions.
Right.
But what makes Sri Vidya kind of unique is that it doesn't say you have to renounce everything worldly to achieve that.
Oh.
It's not like an either-or situation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you can actually like pursue, you know, worldly success.
You can have a good life, enjoy the material world, and still aim for liberation.
Wow. That's kind of cool.
It is. It's a very holistic approach, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, the transcript points out that a lot of people, when they first get into Sri Vidya, they're actually drawn to it because of material desires.
Oh. Okay, so they're not even thinking about moksha yet.
Not initially, no.
Yeah.
They're looking for artha, which is wealth and security and all those good things.
Yeah, everyone wants that.
Everyone does.
Right.
But what's fascinating is that the practice itself, and especially the guidance of a guru, can lead them to a much deeper understanding.
Oh, I see. So it's like they come in looking for one thing, and then the practice kind of like expands their horizons.
Exactly. It's like it meets you where you are and then gently nudges you towards, you know, those bigger questions.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of gurus, it seems like they're super important in this tradition.
They are absolutely central.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, you know, getting information from them.
Right.
There's something much deeper happening. It's like an energetic transmission that's considered absolutely essential for unlocking the deeper layers of Sri Vidya.
Yeah, so it's not just like reading a book.
No, it's a living tradition passed down from guru to disciple.
Okay, and this is particularly important for like the more advanced concepts, right?
Yeah, Smitha Venkatesh really emphasizes that, especially when you start getting into those complex Sanskrit texts like the Sri Vidya Ratnakara. You need a guru to guide you.
Okay.
Because there's so much symbolism and nuance that you could easily miss.
Yeah, and it's probably easy to misinterpret things too.
Absolutely.
If you don't have like that guidance.
Exactly.
Okay, and I know we talked about mantras a little bit. Specifically the Vagbeeja Mantra.
Yeah, the Covet or Durga.
Right, what's the deal with that one?
Okay, so this mantra is like the foundation of Sri Vidya.
Yeah.
It's considered extremely powerful. And Smitha Venkatesh tells this really interesting story to illustrate its significance.
I love stories. Me too.
Okay, what is it?
So it's about this sage, Smitha Rishi.
And as he's dying in a previous life, he's uttering I.
Okay.
Which is considered like half of the Vagbeeja Mantra.
Oh, wow.
And then in a later birth, as Smitha Rishi again, he receives the complete mantra, Cream, from the sage Dattatreya.
Oh, so is it carried over?
Yeah, it's like this beautiful illustration of how spiritual progress can continue across lifetimes.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and it really underscores why it's so important to receive the full mantra from a realized guru.
Okay, because it's like the full transmission of energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just the words, it's the power behind them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So she was talking about her own experience with the Vagbeeja Mantra too.
She
got it pretty young, right?
Yeah, she received it when she was just 14 years old.
Wow.
And she believes that it played a big role in her academic success.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she felt like it enhanced her intellectual abilities.
Interesting.
But she's also careful to point out that while this basic mantra can definitely be beneficial, a guru is still crucial for a deeper understanding, like for really grasping the more advanced aspects of Sri Vidya. And she mentions that the complete mantra you get from a guru is actually longer.
Oh, okay.
And it's usually kept secret.
So it's like a more potent version.
Exactly. It's tailored to the individual and their specific spiritual path.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
It is.
I'm curious about how Sri Vidya connects with other spiritual traditions.
Okay.
Because in the transcript, I noticed, she mentioned Narada, who's a big figure in Vaishnavism, right?
He is.
And he was listening to Smitha Rishi, who we know is associated with these tantric teachings. Yeah. So how does that all fit together?
Well, I think it points to a really important theme that runs through a lot of Indian spirituality.
Okay.
And that's this interconnectedness.
Oh, okay.
It's not like these traditions are completely separate.
Right.
They often share ideas and practices. And Smitha Venkatesh actually explicitly says that she believes in this interconnectedness.
Okay, so she's not like a, Sri Vidya purist.
No, she sees it as part of a larger tapestry of spiritual wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are other examples of this too, right?
There are, yeah.
I remember something about Vishnu and Tara.
Yes, so she mentions that Vishnu, in his incarnation as Rama, worshipped the Divine Mother.
Okay.
Which again shows this connection between different traditions.
Yes.
And then there's the link between Tara, who's a major deity in Buddhism and Tantra.
Right.
And Kurukula in Sri Vidya, who's also seen as a mother figure.
So it's like these different traditions are kind of like riffing on the same themes.
Exactly. They're exploring similar spiritual concepts, but through different lenses.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool.
It is.
So going back to the Vagbeeja Mantra, even just the basic version of it sounds like it has some pretty powerful effects.
It does.
I think there was a part in the transcript where it talked about its potential to activate brain cells.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on there?
So activating brain cells might be a simplified way of putting it. But the idea is that the sound and the focused intention involved in mantra repetition can create these energetic vibrations that can actually influence our consciousness.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not just about the meaning of the words. It's also about the vibrational quality of the sound itself.
So it's like a sonic technology almost.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It is. And this is why in many traditions, chanting and mantra repetition are so central to the practice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a way to directly impact our energetic state.
Okay.
But of course, Smitha Venkatesh reiterates that to really understand the deeper meaning of these mantras and how to use them effectively, you need the guidance of a guru.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with those complex texts we talked about.
Okay, so even if you're like chanting the mantra correctly,
yeah,
there might be a whole other layer of meaning.
Exactly, that you need someone to unlock for you.
Okay, cool. Now, in the transcript, Smitha Venkatesh brought up these 4 types of devotees from the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
How does that relate to like someone on the path of Sri Vidya?
Okay, so I think this framework is really useful for understanding the different motivations people might have when they start practicing Sri Vidya.
Okay.
So the 4 types are the distressed, who are seeking relief from suffering, the seekers of wealth, who are looking for material prosperity, the inquisitive, who are driven by a thirst for knowledge, and the wise, who are already established in spiritual understanding.
Right.
And what's interesting is that in Sri Vidya, someone might start out as one type of devotee, but the practice itself and the guidance of their guru can help them evolve into another type.
Oh, so it's not like you're stuck in one category.
No, it's a journey of transformation.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so someone might come in looking for material wealth.
Yeah.
But through their practice, they might start to develop a deeper longing for spiritual liberation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the guru is there to guide them through those different stages.
Okay, so even if someone starts with more worldly intentions, the practice can lead to a shift in their aspirations.
Exactly. It's like the path itself has this transformative power.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It is.
So we talked about the Vagbeeja Mantra.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some of the more advanced mantras.
Okay.
There's Panchadasi, which is the 15-syllable mantra of Lalita Tripura Sundari.
Yes, the queen of the Sri Yantra.
Right. What's the significance of this one?
So this mantra is super powerful, and Smitha Venkatesh makes a really interesting connection.
Okay.
She says that even if you're not formally initiated into Sri Vidya, you can still connect with the Divine Mother through the Durga Saptashati.
Okay.
which is a text that many Hindus are familiar with.
Yeah, for sure.
And the reason for this is that the Durga Saptashati contains Devi's seed mantras,
Okay.
like Hreem, which is associated with Bhuvaneshwari.
Okay.
So by reciting the Durga Saptashati, you're already working with these potent energies.
Wow, so it's like a gateway into Sri Vidya almost.
Yeah, you could see it that way.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then she reveals that the Panchadashi Mantra itself is actually hidden within the Durga Saptashati.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it's in a verse that starts with Kama Yoni.
Okay.
And she breaks down the 15 syllables of the mantra and shows how they relate to different deities,
Okay.
like Kamadeva Shiva, Bhagavati Lakshmi Indra,
Wow.
and to these fundamental principles of creation and the cosmic forces at play.
So it's like a whole cosmology encoded in this mantra.
Exactly. It's incredibly deep and layered.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is.
But even though, like you said, you can kind of access these energies through the Durga Saptashati, she still emphasizes that you need a guru
Yes.
to really understand the deeper meaning of these mantras.
Absolutely.
Why is that so important?
Because a guru can provide the context, the oral transmission, the personalized instruction
Yeah.
that you need to actually work with these mantras effectively.
Okay, so it's not just about like intellectual understanding.
No, it's about a practical application.
Okay.
It's about how to use these mantras in your meditation, in your spiritual practice.
Yeah, because I imagine there are probably a lot of like nuances and subtleties
Oh, absolutely.
that you wouldn't pick up on just from reading a book.
Exactly. It's a living tradition passed down from teacher to student.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So in the transcript, there was this discussion about like outer and inner practices. Bahir Yag and Antar Yag.
Yeah.
Can you explain what those are?
Yeah, so in Sri Vidya, you have both external and internal forms of worship.
Okay.
So Bahir Yag is the external worship. It involves rituals, offerings, things like that.
Yeah.
And then Antar Yag is the internal worship,
Okay.
which is more about meditation, visualization, working with your own subtle energies.
So it's like the outer practice is kind of like setting the stage.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
It's creating a sacred space,
Right?
and then the inner practice is where the real transformation happens.
Okay. That's really interesting. And where does Matrikanyasa fit into all of this?
So Matrikanyasa is a specific technique that's part of Antar Yag, the inner worship,
Okay.
and it involves placing the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet on different parts of your body.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the idea is that mantras are not just sounds, they're considered to be embodiments of the goddess.
Oh, wow.
So by placing these letters, which are the building blocks of mantras,
Yeah.
you're inviting the divine energy into your own being.
So it's like a physical embodiment of the mantra.
Exactly. You're creating a resonance between your physical body and the subtle energies of the mantra.
Oh, okay. That's pretty powerful.
It is.
Now, the traditional path of Sri Vidya Sadhana sounds pretty involved.
It is.
Can you kind of outline the stages?
Sure. So the traditional path, as Smitha Venkatesh describes it, can take anywhere from 10 to 12 years.
Wow, that's a commitment.
Yeah, it's a gradual process,
Okay.
and it usually starts with initiation into the Vagbeeja Mantra.
Right.
Then you progress to practices involving Bala Panchadashi, and eventually to the Shadashi Mantra.
Okay.
And she really emphasizes the importance of building a strong foundation,
Yeah.
which involves studying sacred texts like the Bhagavad Gita and Tripura Rahasya,
Yeah.
learning about the matrikas.
Yeah, the divine feminine energies.
Exactly. Understanding yantras, which are those sacred geometric diagrams.
Yeah.
And really getting to grips with the Navavarana, which are the 9 enclosures of the Sri Yantra.
Okay, so there's a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, it's a vast and intricate system.
Yeah. And I imagine each stage kind of builds upon the previous one.
It does. It's a step-by-step process
Well,
where
yeah.
you gradually deepen your understanding and your connection with the Divine Mother.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about the Navavarana?
Sure.
Because that sounds incredibly complex.
It is. It's like a whole universe in itself.
Yeah, what are some of the key things that people should know about it?
So the first layer is associated with various cities or spiritual powers.
Okay.
And then the second layer embodies the matrikas. And then the third layer involves understanding mudras, which are those hand gestures.
Okay.
And there are apparently 50 of these mudras that are taught.
Wow.
And knowing the specific yantra of the deity you're worshiping is also crucial.
Okay, so there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, each layer has its own set of practices and symbolism.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that there are certain energy centers or chakras within the Navavarana that are particularly important.
Yeah, so the two main ones are the Trailoki chakra and the Sarva Asha Puraka chakra.
Okay.
And the Trilokya chakra is represented by a square, and it's associated with specific directions and deities.
Okay.
And then the Sarva Asha Puraka chakra is represented by a circle.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she actually makes a connection back to the Durga Saptashati.
Okay.
She says that the matrikas mentioned in that text are related to the second layer of the Sri Vidya chakra.
Oh, wow. So again, it's all interconnected.
Exactly. It's like these different practices and texts are all pointing to the same underlying reality.
That's amazing.
It is.
So in the transcript, Smitha Venkatesh also addressed some like common questions or maybe even misconceptions about finding a guru.
Yeah.
What advice did she give about that?
Well, she said, don't rush into choosing a guru. Take your time, evaluate them, test them.
That's good advice.
Yeah, she even compares it to being careful about where you get your drinking water from.
Yeah, you don't want to just drink from any old source.
Exactly.
Right.
But she also says that even if you don't have a formally initiated guru, you can still benefit from practices like reading the Durga Saptashati or the Durga Kavach.
Oh, okay, so there are still things you can do.
Absolutely. There's no need to feel lost or helpless.
Yeah, that's really reassuring.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of the like practices and concepts.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the miracles and experiences that are often associated with Sri Vidya.
Sure.
There's this idea of siddhis or spiritual powers.
Yes.
What kind of powers are we talking about?
So some of the siddhis that are mentioned are anima,
Okay.
which is the ability to fulfill small desires.
Okay.
Lagima, which is the power to fulfill bigger desires.
Yeah.
And garima, which is gaining recognition, fame, and wealth.
Wow, so you can get pretty much anything you want.
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Right.
The idea is that as you progress on the spiritual path, these powers might naturally manifest.
Okay.
But they're not the ultimate goal.
Right.
The real goal is liberation.
Okay.
But these powers can be a sign of spiritual progress.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can be used to help others.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in the transcript, Smitha Venkatesh shared a personal story about a wish that took a long time to manifest.
She did.
What can we learn from that?
So the story is about a friend's sister-in-law who wanted to have a child.
Okay.
And they did this specific practice from the Lalita Sahasranamam,
Okay.
but it didn't happen right away.
Okay.
And then even after Smitha Venkatesh moved to America,
Yeah.
the sister-in-law eventually did conceive, but it was after her first husband had passed away and she had remarried.
Oh, wow.
So the lesson here is that sometimes things don't manifest on our timeline.
Right.
There's this principle that one's devotion, the guru's power and the mantra will bear fruit,
Okay.
but it might not be when or how we expect.
So it's about trusting in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And surrendering to the divine timing.
Okay, that's really powerful.
It is.
And it also kind of highlights the importance of our intentions, right? Because if we're too focused on like specific desires, especially material ones, we might miss out on something greater.
Right. She cautions against what's called sakam practices,
Okay.
which are practices that are driven solely by desire.
Yeah.
Because our limited perspective might not understand what's truly best for us.
Right.
She even uses the example of Hiranyakashipu,
Okay.
who wanted all these elaborate boons but ended up being outwitted.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a cautionary tale.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. And she suggests that it's better to focus on cultivating a loving relationship with the Divine Mother
Okay.
and trust that she'll provide for our needs.
Yeah, and sometimes those needs are things that we don't even realize we need.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think there was also a story about grapes.
Oh, yeah, the grape story.
Yeah, what was about?
So this is a pretty amazing anecdote
Okay.
about someone who was practicing the Lalita Sahasranamam, and they had this intense craving for grapes.
Okay.
But they were in Switzerland, and it was out of season.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But then out of the blue, their neighbor brought them a gift of grapes
But,
that had been sent all the way from India.
wow.
And then they ended up getting a continuous supply of grapes.
So their wish was granted.
It was.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that makes you wonder.
Yeah, like what's really going on here?
Exactly.
Right.
It shows that sometimes unexpected blessings can manifest in really amazing ways.
For sure.
Yeah.
She also talked about her father and like the transformation he went through. What was that all about?
So her father initially didn't have many lines on his palms.
Okay.
Which astrologically is sometimes interpreted as a sign of challenges.
Yeah.
And he also had a difficult astrological chart.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But through his dedicated sadhana,
Yeah.
his palm lines actually changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he made significant progress, both materially and spiritually.
So his practice actually changed his destiny.
It seems that way. It's a powerful testament to the transformative power of spiritual practice.
Yeah, that's really inspiring.
It is.
But it's not just about spiritual practice, right?
No, it's not.
She emphasizes that our actions in the world, our karma, are also important.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
She quotes this verse from the Bhagavad Gita
Okay.
that says, Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna,
Okay.
which basically means that true prosperity comes when spiritual practice and righteous action are aligned.
So it's like a two-pronged approach?
Sure. Yeah, you have to work on yourself internally,
Yeah.
but you also have to engage with the world in a skillful and ethical way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Let's talk about the further stages of Sri Vidya Sadhana that come after Panchadashi.
So after Panchadashi, there's the Dashi Mantra,
Okay.
which is a 16-syllable mantra that's associated with Lakshmi.
Okay.
And she mentions that the japa requirements for the earlier mantras are pretty intense.
Like how many repetitions are we talking about?
Well, for the Vagbeeja and Bhuvaneshwari mantras, it can be millions of repetitions.
Millions, wow.
Yeah, it's a serious commitment.
Yeah, for sure.
And along with Panchadashi practitioners, also engage in the sadhana of other deities,
Okay.
like Rajamatangi Varahi and Ganapati.
So it's a really multifaceted practice.
It is. It's not just about one mantra or one deity.
Right.
It's about expanding your awareness and connecting with the divine in all its forms.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing called Patra Sahan.
Right.
What is that exactly?
So Patra Sadhan is a set of external rituals
Okay.
that involve using sacred vessels.
Okay.
And the focus is on establishing a yoga pitha. And they prepare different types of argya,
Okay.
which is sacred water.
Right.
And there's the Karana Kalash, which is for invoking the energies of holy rivers.
Okay.
The Samadargya, which is for invoking lunar, solar, and fire energies.
Uh-huh.
And the Visheshargya, which invokes a multitude of kalas or divine energies.
Okay.
And then this consecrated water is transferred to the Guru Patra and the Atma Patra,
Okay.
which represent the Guru's grace and the purification of the self.
Wow, so it's a very elaborate ritual.
It is. It's a way of creating a sacred space and invoking divine energies.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And she talked about this mental havan.
Right.
What was that? So during the mental havan,
You symbolically offer both your merits and your demerits into the sacred fire.
oh, wow. So it's like a purification process.
Exactly. It's about letting go of attachment to both the good and the bad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is followed by other purification practices like Guru Puja,
Okay.
Shuddhi,
Mhm.
and cultivating the feeling of being a child of Shiva.
So it's like a whole process of cleansing and renewal.
It is.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then Matrika Nasa comes up again,
Yes.
but in even more depth.
All right. So after these initial purification practices, you do both Bahir Matrika Nyasa,
Okay, the external placement.
yeah, and Antar Matrika Nyasa, which is the internal placement of the letters
Okay.
within the chakras.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you progress to higher mantras like Shirdashi,
Okay.
which has its own japa requirements.
Right.
And there are additional practices like Nakshatra Nyasa
Okay.
and the Rashmi Mala mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And you also learn more advanced mudras, like
Nice.
the Vipujiva Agra mudra, which are specifically associated with the yantra.
Okay.
So it's a really long and involved journey.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, but it all stems from that initial Vagbeeja Mantra.
Right, so it's all connected.
It's like a spiral path where
Yeah.
you keep circling back to the same core principles.
But each time you go deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
It is.
And it seems like all of these practices ultimately deepen your connection to the Sri Yantra.
Yeah, the Sri Yantra is like the ultimate symbol of Sri Vidya.
Yeah.
It's incredibly complex and powerful. And there are all these different deities and energies that reside within its layers.
So understanding the Sri Yantra is like a key part of the practice.
It is. It's like a map of the cosmos.
Yeah.
And by working with the yantra,
Yeah.
you're aligning yourself with those cosmic forces.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, in the transcript, Smitha Venkatesh started talking about her own personal transformation and her understanding of moksha. She mentioned that she experienced material abundance and increased intellect.
Right.
But what about liberation?
So this is where her story gets really interesting.
Okay.
She talks about how the intense concentration she developed during Sri Yantra meditation
Yeah.
led to a state where her mind became really quiet.
Okay.
Like her thoughts just stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. And she describes it as being like trapped.
Oh, wow.
Like her mind was trapped in this state of pure awareness.
Interesting.
And at first she was actually confused by it.
Oh, why is that?
Because she started having all these visions of deities.
Okay.
And it made her question her understanding of Advaita.
Right, the non-dualistic view.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it wasn't just internal experiences.
Yeah.
She also had these really vivid and seemingly precognitive events.
What does that mean?
Like she would see things in advance.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then.